For those of you that don't know me, my name is Melinda Arcara. I'm the author of a book called 3 Steps to Gluten-Free Living. It's a great book. It's a step-by-step guidebook for anybody who is new to the world of gluten-free or supporting someone else who is gluten-free. So I find it's great for grandmothers and grandfathers or husbands to read to help support their wives or vice versa. Or parents who have newly diagnosed children who are trying to get on the path of gluten-free living and aren't really sure. They're left with the question of where do I start? So this is really the guidebook for people who are newly diagnosed. So I'm so excited that you're here. I've been an advocate for eating gluten-free for a long time. I've been gluten-free for 11 years. My husband was diagnosed with celiac 5 years ago. So we are a gluten-free, gluten-full house. My husband and I are gluten-free. Our children are not and don't require a gluten-free diet. So I have that challenge of preparing foods that everybody in the house will enjoy, but also, you know, are safe for my husband and I to eat. So the risk of cross-contamination is higher when you have that. But I have all kinds of tips and tricks that I'm going to be using here today to help cut down on cross-contamination. So COVID has been a very challenging time, right? I mean, it's one of those things where we're stuck inside. You know, as we're starting to venture out more, we're finding that restaurants that were safe for us to eat at are now closed or are closing or aren't providing the menu items that we were used to prior to COVID. So that's been a real challenge. On the flip side, it's safe for us to eat at home. There's less chance of cross-contamination. I feel great. I've been cooking at home for 6 months and I feel really healthy. I'm super passionate about the foods that I make and using healthy ingredients. So what I'm going to talk to you about today are 3 ingredients that are really going to transform your recipes. They're going to save you money and they're very versatile. We're going to talk about beans, greens, and gluten-free grains. And not in that order, but you know, I think that those are 3 ingredients that you can use breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know, gluten-free grains, you know, they get kind of a bad rap, you know, like everybody says, you know, grains are your enemy, and that's not really true. And I think that what that is that's a misconception. Grains are not your enemy. What they're talking about is simple carbohydrates versus complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates meaning the things that are made with sugar, baked goods with refined flours, fruit juices. Those are simple carbohydrates, and what they do is they cause insulin levels to rise in your body and can create insulin resistance and even diabetes. So simple carbohydrates are really what they're talking about. What we're going to talk today about is whole grains, which are complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are your friend. They love you. They want to feed your microbiome. So complex carbohydrates are whole grains. Now, what is a whole grain? I mean, we see it on packaging, we see it on cereals, we see it on crackers. You know, a whole grain is really in the kernel itself. So I need you to kind of be creative. I didn't have a grain of any kind of wheat in my house, thankfully. So we're going to use this avocado as kind of our grain kernel. And when you look at this, the bran is the outside of the grain kernel, and that provides different antioxidants, and it's a large part of the grain. The germ, which is inside of the grain, is the embryo, and that's really where all the vitamins and minerals of the grain comes from. The vitamin B, the protein, the fat, it all comes from that germ area. The area around that, which is called the endosperm, that is what feeds the germ. Okay, so in the milling process, we need to mill our grains in order to make them more edible and more digestible. But what they figured out in industrialized milling is that if they remove the germ and they take away the bran, what that did was that increased the shelf life and prevented the foods from getting rancid. And it actually made industrialized food making less expensive. So by removing those two items, what that did was that created nutritional deficiencies by taking out the B vitamins and where the niacin was, and the iron and the protein. Now we have foods that were being made that were less nutritious. Well, it was very apparent because the government mandated that now that the foods that were made from these refined grains needed to be enriched. Okay, so they actually had to put some of the vitamins and minerals back into the foods that they had previously taken out to give it longer shelf life. So this really created some problems because they can't put all the vitamins and minerals back. So for people like ourselves who are celiac, who are already nutrient deficient, that enriching those foods really didn't get us back to where we needed to be. And because gluten-free ingredients aren't required to be enriched, we have to find our vitamin B and thiamine and iron and niacin from other sources, other whole grains. So when we talk about whole grains, we're really talking about the whole three parts. There are lots of gluten-free grains out there. Steel cut oats, one of my favorites. This is a brand called 1 Degree. And I'm telling you, this is a game changer for me. I haven't eaten oats for years because of the reaction I was getting from cross-contamination. When they mill these different grains, in a lot of instances, there's a chance of cross-contamination because they may be milling wheat or barley or rye in the same facility where they do oats. Oats are gluten-free, but there's a high chance of cross-contamination. So this lovely company, they are actually certified gluten-free. If you look on the front, they have the Beyond Celiac certification on there. And I'm back into oats. I love them. And steel cut oats specifically are really a great thing. Another whole grain, wild rice. Lundberg is one of my favorite. Their motto is leave the land better than it was. And so they have all different types of wild rices, and it's grown here in the United States. So they have wild rice, brown rice. They have all kinds of different blends. So I really like Lundberg. The other one is quinoa. Okay, and this is hilarious. This is a 4-pound bag of quinoa that I bought at Costco, and this is how much I have left. Like, we eat quinoa like crazy, and we're going to talk about the versatility of quinoa. But, when we were growing up, we ate, some sort of bread for breakfast. And we were eating it because it was convenient, it was fast. But really, breakfast, if you think about it, is breaking the fast, right? So we need energy in the morning. And the best way to get energy in the morning is to eat protein. Eating protein at night, if you don't use it as energy, it gets stored as fat. So it's actually a better choice to be eating proteins in the morning. Quinoa specifically has all 9 essential amino acids that like a protein that came from an animal, like a steak, would have, which is the only grain out there that has all 9 essential amino acids. It contains high amounts of fiber, iron, copper, thiamine, B6, and folic acid. And folic acid has been known to prevent certain birth defects. So it has a lot of benefits. But the protein itself helps to benefit muscle and provide energy. So the first thing we're going to make is we're going to make a quinoa protein bowl. And if you've ever been to First Watch, it's a restaurant that has just opened up recently here in Eastern PA. And they have this quinoa bowl that I have deconstructed, and I absolutely love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook an egg. Sunny side up. I have that on the back, and I'm going to pull this over by the camera so you can see. So while my egg cooks in a small fry pan, what I did was I sautéed. Can you see? I sautéed onions, sausage, breakfast sausage, and mushrooms. 3 ingredients. Super easy. Mushrooms, onions, and breakfast sausage. And the breakfast sausage that I'm using is because my husband's from Wisconsin and he loves Johnsonville brats. Well, this isn't brats, but this is the Johnsonville breakfast sausage. And one of the reasons I like Johnsonville, and I like Jones family too, is because they actually write on there that it's gluten-free. Some of the other brands that you look at, you can read through the ingredient list and it's really difficult to find where it says that it's gluten-free. So this particular brand I really like. So what I did was, oh, my egg is getting very nice. I'm cooking with a pan. Now this is what I call my gluten-free pan. So this is a pan in the house that's a little bit heavier than everybody else's. Cast iron pans, they have a seasoning on them. So if they've been previously used with something that contained gluten, there's a high chance of cross-contamination with that. So this pan has never had any gluten-containing ingredients with it. You'll notice I'm using a pink spatula. Woo, my egg is popping. A gluten-free. This is my gluten-free spoon. When I'm cooking gluten-free and gluten-full, I always keep my spatula on the left side. I cook on the left side of the stove. And then if I'm cooking something gluten-full, I put it on the right side. So after I saute the onions and sausage, I'm going to add some quinoa. Now I just cooked this quinoa, a big batch of it. 1 cup of quinoa yields about 2 cups cooked. So I'm going to add about a cup of quinoa into the pan. And I didn't drain out any of the drippings because the neat thing about quinoa is it picks up whatever flavors that you use it with. Now, you can use vegan sausage in this if you're a vegan, and then you can just stop here and eat this like as a hash. There's all kinds of vegan bacons out there and different Beyond Meats, which are really delicious. So the next thing I'm going to do is I have some beautiful baby spinach. We're going to talk about greens in our next menu choice, but I'm going to put some spinach in here. And normally I would saute this, but I don't want to turn my back on you and have you look at the back of my head, which is not very interesting. So I'm going to saute. I would normally saute the spinach in with this, and then we're going to put it in a nice little bowl. This is kind of a shallow bowl. Again, it has a lot of surface area, which I like. So I'm going to go ahead and put the spinach, quinoa, sausage, mushrooms, and put that in a bowl. And then I'm going to top it. Wait, you see this egg? My son has this friend, and she has ducks. And this is a beautiful, large duck egg. I don't know if you can see that, but the yolk, it doesn't taste any different than a chicken egg, but the yolk, oh my gosh, it's so much creamier. I cooked this in olive oil. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm dairy free. And a lot of people who are celiac or gluten intolerant do have a dairy intolerance as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze a little bit of lemon around. It's hard to see, I'm sorry. I'm going to squeeze a little bit of lemon around it because the lemon with the spinach, I should have done that before I put my egg on, but this makes a fabulous breakfast. Very high in protein. I'm going to salt this a little bit. This is a little bit of sea salt and a little bit of black pepper. And then let me just show you. When you break that egg and that creamy yolk works in with that quinoa, it is absolutely fabulous. It is a delicious, protein-rich breakfast that anybody would enjoy. And a nice thing about this is if you just make the hash portion without the spinach, you can eat that all week long. Just pull that out, throw some spinach in it, put an egg on top, and you have a really complete meal that's going to satiate you much longer than just eating a piece of toast or a piece of bread. So grains are fabulous. Okay, we got grains for breakfast. Why not greens for lunch? So let me clean up my station a little bit. But greens have been shown to lower the risk of heart disease, right? They contain fiber, iron, potassium. But the real benefit of greens is that they have calcium, magnesium, and vitamin K. And what does that mean? That's bone health. That helps to form bones, keep you strong. A lot of people who are vegetarian or vegan, everybody always says, oh, are they getting enough protein? Yes, they are, because there's a lot of vitamins and minerals, and if they're eating it with grains, they're getting a lot of protein in there. There's a lot of antioxidants to help cut inflammation. There's folic acid, which helps to prevent birth defects. Vitamin C and other vitamins and minerals, which help to lower the risk of certain cancers like colon cancer, breast cancer, and stomach cancer. It's low glycemic, so it's perfect for people who are diabetic, and you can eat as much as you want. It's very low calorie, but it's nutrient dense. So you want to eat, low calorie, high nutrition, and that's what greens provide for you. One thing that people don't think about, and different types of greens, are bitters. Bitters, let's think of that like arugula or watercress or radicchio, even kale or mustard greens. That bitter green helps to promote digestion and helps to increase the amount of bile in your system. And what that does is it takes the load off of your gallbladder and your liver. So if you're somebody who has challenges with your gallbladder, you may want to start eating a bitter green salad before you have your meals. And that really starts to promote digestion and helps to get your system going. Other things that you can buy that are very high in nutrients are microgreens. Microgreens are the young vegetables that are harvested from 7 to 21 days after germination, and they have 9 times the amount of nutrients as their full-grown partner. So a microgreen of romaine has 9 times more nutrients than a leaf of romaine, a large leaf of romaine. So look for microgreens, because you can just grab those and just pop those in different locations, or just pop them in your mouth. I have a really good friend who she and I were talking the other day about herbs. And you forget herbs are dark green leafy vegetables, right? Parsley specifically, this is amazing. Parsley has 33 times the vitamin C, 16 times the amount of vitamin K, 6 times the amount of iron, and 4 times the amount of calcium as regular lettuce. And it would be very difficult to sit down and, let's say, eat a cup of parsley. But if you had a cup of parsley and you sprinkled a little bit here and sprinkled a little bit there and sprinkled a little bit there, you're going to get the nutrients out of that herb that you wouldn't have normally gotten by using it, let's say, in the dried form. So using fresh herbs is really a great way to get some nutrients into your system. So today I'm going to make something really quick, and I'm obsessed with mason jars. I don't know about you, but now you see on like Pinterest and all these things, these mason jar salads. And at first I was like, whatever, mason jar salads. Well, they are the easiest, most convenient food that you can have on hand, and you just grab and go. I love to travel, and matter of fact, the Travel Gluten-Free podcast, she's going to be doing a talk, or she did a talk today about road trips. So this is a great thing. You make several of these mason jar salads, and then as you're running out the door, you can grab it. Like if you're going to the mall and you're not sure if there's going to be something available for you to eat, this is a great thing to do. At the end of my presentation, I'll give you my website, and I actually have a nice little print off for you that gives all different suggestions on how to prepare mason jar salads. So there's actually a little science to this. I don't know if you realize this. So I made this fantastic dressing. This is my sister Sue's favorite dressing. It's made with lemon juice, champagne vinegar, honey, lemon olive oil, and you can use regular olive oil. You can use white wine vinegar or red wine vinegar, salt and pepper. So just that little bit of honey and lemon together. I wish you could smell this. It smells so delicious. So I'm going to put that in the bottom of my jar first, and probably about 2 tablespoons. I'm just kind of eyeing this up. And then you want to put like your hardest vegetables on the bottom. This is just some chickpeas that I had in my refrigerator. So I'm going to put the chickpeas on the bottom. And if I had carrots or celery or broccoli, that would be what I would put in there. The next thing, my salad, this is a fabulous orange salad with olives. So these are Kalamata olives that I cut up, and I just put those in the next layer. And then this is a purple onion, chopped it up. I love onions. I mean, I eat those like crazy. I could just like bite an onion. I don't know. I'm just one of those people. The next thing I'm going to do is I love arugula in this salad. It's fabulous with spinach as well, but I'm going to put arugula, and I'll show you what I did here as soon as I get this all in. And I should have got a bigger jar. This is just a small one, so if I was just running out the door. And then I'm going to put some mandarin oranges. So I got a fresh mandarin orange and just cut this into small pieces. And then this is where you would put your protein. Now, the only reason I put the oranges on top is because I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have, like, if there was any juice, the juice would run down into it. Boy, I put too much dressing in this, but that's okay. Because what we're going to do is I put pistachios on top. So what we have is the lemon dressing. We have olives, we have onions, arugula, mandarin oranges, and pistachios. And at the end, I'll give you the, on my website, I have this recipe. Okay, and now this is the best part of the whole mason jar salad, right? You shake it up, and you can even put this in one of those big soup containers, you know, those plastic ones that you get from a Chinese restaurant, and you just shake it, shake it, shake it. And what you can do is you can take this, oops, I don't have a bowl, and flip it upside down, and all the dressing will run over it, or you can just eat it right outside of the jar. So now I have this fabulous salad that's on the go, and it's got all the wonderful benefits of, you know, all those greens in there, and it's really delicious. So a quick, easy salad. We have greens, we have grains. Now, yeah, let's talk about beans, right? And honestly, when I say beans, what do you think? Everybody rolls their eyes like, oh, yeah, I know. Like, I need to adapt more beans, but you know why? Well, beans are a plant-based source of protein that are just the powerhouse, and they're very easy to use. They're very versatile. 1 cup of beans is equal to the amount of protein as 1 cup of chicken. That's amazing. And it has no saturated fat. So for people who are vegan or vegetarian, who are concerned about, you know, the amount of protein, if they're getting enough, you know, sprinkling some beans on their meal really helps to boost everything up. The cool thing about where we're living, or what we're doing now in society, is there's so many different forms. You know, growing up, there was the old can of beans, right? Now we have canned beans. We've got boxed beans. We've got, I have so many. I got dried beans. We've got beans shaped as rice. We've got beans shaped as pasta. So there's all different forms of beans and legumes. The neat thing about beans and legumes is, you know, they grow above the ground and under the ground, but their shape usually tells you what it is. A kidney bean is shaped like a kidney. A black-eyed pea has a black eye in it. So you can pretty much figure out what it is, you know, based on its shape or even its color. There's cranberry beans, which are cranberry colored. So the nice thing about these bean people is they made it very easy for people like myself to figure out, because a kidney bean is shaped like a kidney. So I like that. Nutrition wise, they are low in calories, high in protein, low in saturated fats. They provide a lot, you know, lots of fiber. You know, fiber is what feeds your microbiome. Legumes contain large essential amounts of vitamin B, folate, iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium. The health benefits to help prevent chronic diseases. They're low glycemic, so they're a great choice for anybody who is diabetic. The insoluble and the soluble and insoluble fiber is really terrific for your microbiome. So you want to, when they talk about building your immune system, you want to build it through feeding the good bugs in your microbiome, and feeding them with legumes and beans is a great choice. Now, when we talk about beans, there's an elephant in the room that we need to talk about. It's beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more yes, it is that fruit that really causes digestion problems for a lot of people. And, you know, when you say like, hey, want some beans? People are like, oh, no, I can't eat beans. They don't like me. So there's a few things that you can do to really cut back on the musical portion of the beans, and one of them is rinsing them. So when you open up your can of beans or your box of beans, you put them in a colander and you rinse and you rinse and you rinse and you rinse until all the foam has dissipated. And by washing that off and getting that all of that off, that's going to really help you digest those beans a lot better. Soaking dried beans. If you soak beans for more than 8 hours, it usually takes about 8 hours to get them to a point where they'll start to break down so that you can bake, cook them. You add a 1/16 of a teaspoon of baking soda to it, and that'll help soften the beans so that when you go to cook them, they'll be a little bit quicker. 1 cup of dried beans can make as much as 2 to 2.5 cups of cooked beans, so they last a long time. If it's a hot day, you want to put your soaked beans in the refrigerator because you don't want them to ferment because they'll start to grow, and that's really going to cause a lot of problems digestion wise. If you have problems with lectins, cooking beans in a pressure cooker, an Instant Pot is a great choice. That really starts to help break down those beans and will help with the musical portion of the food. One thing that I didn't know is that you don't salt the water that your beans are going to go in, and you don't season your beans until they're done cooking. You want to take the beans, rinse them, put them in a pan, cover them with water, and it's not like a grain where you wait for the water to be absorbed into it. You keep adding water until the beans get to the consistency that you're looking for, but you don't drain them right away. You cook the beans, you let them cool in the water, and then you can drain them, but don't throw out the water. You can use that water for soups and stocks, and that's a very nutritious part that you don't want to get rid of. If you drain the beans while they're still hot, they're going to shrivel. And I have notoriously done that with black beans. Like I'll take them and rinse them and put them in a pot, and then I'll go pour the water out, and then I'm stuck with shriveled black beans. Yeah, that's appealing. So lentils, I don't know about you, but like I really did not grow up. Lentils was not something that was a major part of our diet, but I've grown to love them. They're a flat shaped disc. They come in dried forms of all different colors. What I didn't know in the celiac community is there's a high incidence of other grains being cross-contaminated with lentils. And I learned this through the Gluten-Free Watchdog. If you don't subscribe to that website, you may want to do that because they test different products and they analyze them, and they're kind of the watch service for the gluten-free community. And one of the things that they did was they took different lentil packages and laid them out on trays and actually show the different grains that have been found within those packaging. This particular brand, True Roots, I liked this one because it was a sprouted one and it only cooks in 5 minutes. So as a busy mom, I like to have things quick. And sometimes I'm just deciding like at the minute what I'm going to cook. And so this was a great choice. So it cooks in 5 minutes, but it also says gluten-free on there. So I felt a little bit more confident about this brand versus other brands because it had that gluten-free mark on there. We're going to use that in our recipe, but there's some really cool other bean or legume-based products out there. And this is great for vegans or vegetarians. This is a product from Explore Cuisine, and it's a lentil rice. And I cooked this up the other day, and it has like almost a texture of like an orzo, but it held its shape, and it was really delicious. And this was a red lentil. I have green lentil lasagna noodles that are fabulous for lasagna, and I've cooked those for my kids, and they didn't even know it. I'm so tricky. Ronzoni, this is a brand of gluten-free pasta that has emerged, I think, in the last 5 or 6 years I've found it. And they recently came out with a cauliflower pasta with fava beans. And when you read the ingredient list, it's really 3 ingredients. It's white rice flour, cauliflower, and fava beans. And it holds up really nice. It's great for pasta salads, and we've had it with red sauces. Very good. It's not as good as La Veneziani. Giorgio is selling his products down on the vendor list, but it is very good. So lentils are, like very versatile. The one thing I do want to tell you is that green and brown lentils stay more firm. So those would be good for like the salad that we're going to be doing today, where yellow, red, and orange ones are a little bit softer. So those would be good choices for soups and sauces. And they give it like a really nice creamy, like golden lentils make a really lovely soup. Versus the brown and green, which color-wise aren't as beautiful when it comes to a soup, so it's a little bit more appealing. Two things that you want to do with lentils is that you want to rinse them and buy fresh lentils. Older lentils, the skins start to come off and it takes longer for them to cook, which I did not know. And you always season after you cook them. That's one of those ones where you cook them, you drain them, and then you season them after. And you have to probably use quite a bit of salt to get it. It's kind of like quinoa, where they don't have much of a flavor, but they will pick up the flavor of whatever you put in there. So if you put fresh herbs in, and you can use them in different things. They're fabulous for Mexican dishes or Italian. So they're very versatile. When you're cooking with lentils, you want to cook them at a high heat and then bring it down to a simmer and let them simmer. You may have to continually add water into the dish in order to, keep them cooking. It's not like a pasta where or like a grain where you cook it until the water dissolves. So with that, you keep adding. So the last recipe we're gonna do, I was thinking of Thanksgiving. Okay, something a little bit different. Now this recipe goes really good with lentil, but it can also be done with like a brown rice or a wild rice. So I already cooked up some lentils. These were those green lentils, and I have a big pan of them. I'm not going to use all of them, but I made enough so that I can sprinkle them on salads and different things. So let me pull over my ingredients so I can keep organized over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I have this lovely fall bowl, okay? And I'm going to take, normally you would take the lentils when they're warm and you would put the dressing on them. My lentils are at room temperature. So I'm going to take about 2 cups of lentils and put them in my purple bowl. So all I did was I dumped them and put them in my bowl. Earlier, I roasted some butternut squash and onions. And then I took 2 cloves of garlic with their skin on, and I put them in a piece of foil with olive oil, salt, and pepper. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a dressing with those olives, or excuse me, with those pieces of garlic. So this is my little handy dandy mixer, and in here I have 6 tablespoons of olive oil. I have some sherry vinegar. I have some mustard and salt and pepper. And I have this recipe for you at the end. I'm going to tell you where it is on my website. So I'm going to take those 2 cloves of garlic and I'm going to put that in there with the other ingredients for the dressing. And this is going to be the dressing for our Thanksgiving lentil dish. This will be a nice side dish, or actually this could be a meal if you're a vegan or a vegetarian. So, and I just cooked these lentils in water with a bay leaf. Very simple. And when you read a lot of Indian recipes, that's how they tell you to cook the lentils. So I have one of these neat little handy blenders, and I'm going to blend this. It might get a little loud, so I apologize. La, la, la. I'm distracting you. Okay. So that's going to chop up all those 2 pieces of garlic. That garlic that I roasted in the oven was nice and soft. And oh my gosh, I wish you could smell this. It doesn't smell as good as Sue's lemon dressing, but it is very good. So you can smell the mustard, you can smell the sherry vinegar. So I have the lentils. Now I'm going to add the roasted vegetables to it. Okay. My hands are clean. I just want you to know that. And then I'm going to add the dressing. So if this was warm, can you see that I'm adding the dressing over top of this? Ooh, pretty. And I didn't put all the dressing in because what I'm going to do next is I have some baby kale. And kale is one of those vegetables that really, when you have it in the large form and it has that heavy center stalk, and this has a little bit of a stalk to it. What you can do is you can remove that. What I'm doing is I'm folding this in half and I'm pulling out that center stalk. But don't throw away that stalk because you can use that in different ingredients. So you would take about 2 cups of that kale, okay? And I'm just going to do a couple pieces so that we have time to take questions at the end. But you would take the kale and put it in with the squash and the onions and the lentils and mix that all in. And we have 2 more ingredients. So you could take a little bit more of the dressing and put it over the kale. You know what? I should have got a bigger bowl. That's okay. And now I'm going to top it with cranberries. Now the recipe I'm using, I got from thekitchen.com. That's KITCHN. And they used raisins in there. I'm not a big raisin fan. And plus for Thanksgiving, I thought craisins would be a better choice. So I'm going to sprinkle some craisins on here. And then I'm going to top it with pecans. Ooh, pretty. So now we have this lovely, hang on, let me get my flipper here. And I wish you could see how the lentils soaked up that dressing. It looked like I put a lot of dressing on there, but I really didn't, because I made about, that was probably about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup of dressing, and I still have dressing left. So now you have this beautiful salad for Thanksgiving. Now this salad can be made in advance. So you could take cook the lentils, put the dressing on it so it starts to soak it in. And then put the roasted vegetables in, and then just add the kale and the other items at the end. This can be served warm or it can be served at room temperature. But it's a beautiful, beautiful way. You can also put it on a platter so it's a little bit longer so that everybody can see all the different ingredients in it. And then right before you're serving, you can even add a little bit more cranberries. And I'm a pecan girl. Like I put nuts and seeds in everything because I'm a little nutty. And so I put that in, right before I'm serving it. So, like I said, that's a lentil Thanksgiving salad. You can find all of the recipes that I've done here today on my website, 3stepstoglutenfreeliving.com. When you go onto that website, there's a tab called Coaching/Downloads. I just changed it from coaching to coaching downloads, so you would know where to look. So below the coaching section, if you need any gluten-free coaching, you can contact me and we can set up a Zoom meeting just like this and work through some of the challenges that you have in your home. But just below the coaching information, there's several different downloads. There's a download for the mason jar salads. It has a listing of all the different variations of flavor enhancers or flavor choices. Let's say if you wanted to do a Mediterranean mason salad or an Asian salad or an Indian mason jar salad, I have lots of suggestions on how to add beans, greens, and gluten-free grains to that. So you can look for that. I have the recipes. I also have a print off for the beans, greens, and gluten-free grains nutritional information. And on that, it talks about what a whole grain is and how to recognize what parts, what constitutes there's a diagram on there, what constitutes a whole grain, which I think is, when you see that visual, I mean, the avocado was very interesting, but I think when you see it on this other form, it's much better.